What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video. And today it is my first 2025 NFL mock draft. Yes, this is way too early, but we're doing this for fun, get a highlight on some of the players that were not featured or very rarely featured, and get us excited for even more football in the future. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun YouTube jazz. And of course, in the description are great ways to be able to get more experiences, like being able to join me on Twitter and being able to join me on Instagram, all those fun places, Discord. And then you can also get our sponsors of the show, which I'm not going to labor your time with. Let's get right into this. This is going to be a custom draft order. Honestly, don't take it too seriously. It was more so just based on what happened on last draft, which this is based off of the draft earlier this week. Now I'm going to have the draft classes on here because that was a request for last time, and honestly, I think that's a brilliant request. So if you guys have any modifications, feel free to ask for it. But we're going to walk right through this and have a good time. Starting off with the number one overall pick, we have the Los Angeles Rams, assuming that, most likely you see that there's going to be some retirements in there. I don't think that the Rams are necessarily Super Bowl rosters. I don't know if they're playoff rosters. They're in a very tough division. So therefore, they ended up here. I'm not going to explain many of the other positions, but, a team who goes number one overall, it does make sense. But I do think when you have someone as versatile, as athletic, as determined as Travis Hunter, he's the number one player coming into college, and he's going to be the number one player coming out of college. He's an exceptional athlete. He really works his ass off. He has allowed quite a few touchdowns, but I do think that the value of him as kind of both a hybrid wide receiver and defensive back, he's primarily going to be a defensive back, but that's just unlimited value to a team, especially early on. Again, the 2024 mock draft that we did this past week got Kool-Aid McKinstry to also potentially pair up with him. Super excited for that. So that's also why it's kind of up in the air as to where you want to put him. There's no quarterback worth the number one overall pick, so got to get that out of the way as well. Leonard Taylor to be able to replace Aaron Donald, and then Joe Milton to hopefully be able to take the reins, because at this spot, I am not going to be giving the reins to anybody else. At pick number 2, we got the Tennessee Titans. Again, don't take the draft order too seriously. It's more so for fun than anything. It's very tough to decide what teams are going to lose. The schedule's not even out yet, so let's pipe down on that. But you guys get to enjoy getting Will Johnson. I did not get a boundary corner in the past mock draft, and I do know that is an area that you guys definitely need to target. Will Johnson's one of the best corners since his true freshman year, and he's just been continuously dominant, but very quiet. Like, not many people, especially for Michigan fans, which I'm honestly quite surprised about, because y'all Michigan fans are pretty damn loud, and I have not heard a ton of love for Will Johnson, but every time I turn the tape on, he is making plays. He's a great overall corner, great overall build. Maybe in the future I'll start putting on their size, but that's going to be very tough. There's going to be a lot of information on a screen, so I'm going to try to reduce that as much as possible. But with Joe Alt, Cam Kitchens, and now Will Johnson, you're starting to have a pretty damn good secondary and pretty good roster in terms of players. You're going to have playmakers at the very valuable positions, which is a plus value. Next, we got Amarius Mims. This is actually thanks to a comment that I received on my last mock draft talking about how multiple people now talking about Panthers need offensive line. Amarius was a returner in the last week's mock draft, so he is going to be featured this time. I say he should be a top 5 pick. He actually almost was my number 2 overall pick, but I decided on Will Johnson because I didn't get a boundary corner for y'all. Again, feel free to check out. We got Johnny Wilson, Xavier Thomas, 2 pieces that I think are going to be foundational in the long run, but y'all did bring up offensive line, and I do agree. Amarius Mims, whether he's going to play left, right tackle, doesn't matter. I honestly would be willing to switch him to left tackle and then kick Icky to the inside. That's a topic for another day. But Amarius Mims, 6'7", 340. Dude's a beast. I'm a big fan. Next, we got Benjamin Morrison to the Colts. Again, don't overthink the draft order. Just enjoy the players and where they land. Because honestly, we don't even know if Benjamin Morrison's going to be a top 5 overall pick. So if y'all are at 14, this could be your pick too. Just keep that in mind. So Benjamin Morrison's here. I love Benjamin Morrison. And yes, I do have a board. So once we start getting to the point where we want to do mock draft simulators, this is honestly a pain in the ass to do. So I am more than excited for a mock draft simulator to I mean, it takes me about 8 or 9 hours to do the graphics, including, you know, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. So, yeah, obviously once that starts happening, you guys actually get to see a draft board too. So at least there's some added benefit for you guys with that. However, Benjamin Morrison, he has been spectacular. Another one of those players where I was debating between him and Will Johnson. To be fair, I think they might be better than Travis Hunter. I mean, Travis Hunter has had some pretty poor plays in there, but the overall upside of Travis Hunter is through the roof. He is arguably Deion Sanders tier. Funnily enough, he's being trained by Deion Sanders, so we got that too. But Benjamin Morrison's been extremely reliable there for Notre Dame. He's been much better than who they have, and I believe it's Cam Hart. So he's just overall a better boundary corner. I assume if you guys are here towards this part of the draft, I'm having Cooper DeJean be a safety for y'all all day. That guy is unbelievable in that role. And then you got Troy Fautanu in that last draft, so no need to draft offensive line. There's no O tackles that were really worth it at this point. It's really Amarius Mims and then the rest at the moment. And then we also got McKinley Jackson to boost that defensive interior. I was thinking about going Dion Walker, I believe, out of Kentucky at this point, because DeForest Buckner will be up for a contract. But, you know, when you get someone who's right down the road at a high value position, and honestly one that you kind of lack a lot of depth, I feel like it is pretty damn valuable to be able to target it. And then Peyton Wilson to be able to at least create some more competition there in that linebacking room. Again, now you got Benjamin Morrison. You have a true captain of that defense. Again, it's going to be, this is honestly a really freaking good team if it ends up going like this. Next, we got Harold Perkins. Yes, Raiders, it's a pain in the ass. I'm trying my best to not put y'all down here. And to be fair, there's a very good chance that Jayden Daniels hits it off immediately because there's that coaching synergy since y'all's head coach Jayden Daniels for 2 years at the start of his career. But I do think there might be some growing pains to pretty much evolving an offense from Aiden O'Connell to Jayden Daniels. Again, luckily you have the coach to do it. But I don't know if Jayden Daniels is going to be that guy who has that day one impact. And I think he's going to be a great quarterback down the line, especially if he goes to the Raiders. Devondre Sweat is a foundational piece to stop the run, which is great. Kalen Carson will probably need a full year to develop. So you guys end up getting Harold Perkins here. You can use him as a linebacker and, you know, continue misusing him the way LSU has, or you can use him in combination with Tyree Wilson and Max Crosby. Bottom line, you went best player available, and I do think after having Harold Perkins added to your roster, 2025 could be a year you make a legitimate playoff push. I know you don't want to hear playoff push, you want to hear Super Bowl push, but at the end of the day, there's only 1 out of 32 teams that actually gets to make a legitimate Super Bowl run, or maybe like 4 teams that make a legit Super Bowl run. And let's be real, the Raiders still have quite a few holes that we're trying to fill. Next, we have Quinn Ewers going to the New Orleans Saints. Yeah, I mean, we got Leatu Latu and Kalen Bullock in the last draft, which, again, are pieces for the future. Kalen Bullock is not going to have a big impact year one because you have some aging veteran safeties. Leatu Latu probably will not have as big of a role as you think because there's Peyton Turner there, as well as why am I tripping up on Cam Jordan's name? I was forgetting his first name. So he won't have a year one impact the way maybe you'd want him to. Similar to Brian Breezy, he's not necessarily the biggest day one impact, but over time, these guys are going to be excellent pieces for your defense. And so this is, again, another team that can make a massive ascension. I think Quinn Ewers still needs to improve his deep ball, but this guy is spectacular within 20 yards. And for me, that matters a lot more than those deep shot plays. So I love the idea of I love the play of Quinn when he gets in rhythm. And again, if he fixes that deep ball, not much is going to stop him. There is a chance he does come out in this draft, especially with the quarterback class looking to thin out more and more and more. But I mean, again, in this draft, he ended up returning. So he ended up joining us in this video. Next, spoiled it. We have the Broncos. I debated going quarterback for y'all, but honestly, with the idea that, or with the proposition that you might be losing multiple wide receivers and essentially going to be gutting the roster, I didn't want Luther Burden to fall out of the top 10. And this is a really good spot for him to go. You see the next pick. I don't feel like this team's desperate for a quarterback. That sounds honestly interesting, being that you're at number 7, but again, this team got a really damn good draft. Dallas Turner, Jermaine Burton, as well as Javon Foster. Javon is essentially going to be stepping in now. If they're at number 7, Garrett Bowles is going to say, screw you, I'm gone. So you have your left tackle of the future already. Jermaine Burton could be your Jerry Jeudy replacement. I think Luther Burden is an excellent combination with him. You're going to maybe lack that big possession receiver, but the fact is you're going to have so many weapons on the outside that have a good balance of speed and route running ability to where you can go 4 wide and you can add in somebody who is going to be a little bit more of that possession receiver. But Luther Burden is spectacular, super reliable. Missouri's offense has been just going right through this guy this whole year. And you got to give credit where credit's due. I debated going to quarterbacks, but I didn't sense a level of desperation with this organization the way that, unfortunately, the end of the Dobbs era might bring. So, Shedeur Sanders is here at number 8. I just don't think it's an amazing quarterback class. I will preface it with that. And, I do think that this would be your best wins above replacement move. I really hope Josh Dobbs continues to prove me wrong because that's awesome. That really would be amazing to see him have a Geno Smith arc. Unfortunately, Geno's starting to come back down to earth, but I really hope that maybe similar to last year with Geno being good for that long, you could see a little bit more consistency from Josh Dobbs, and then you wouldn't be here. But more likely than not, if you don't get another quarterback, and Kirk Cousins, I believe, is up after this year as well, it's SOL. So, Shedeur Sanders can step in right away. You have very good offensive line. You have elite level weapons. This is going to be him living at home. And now you got Bucky Irving back there to be a 3-down back. You got Ty Chandler to just be relegated to more of that receiving back role. And then you have Jared Verse pairing up most likely with Danielle Hunter. Again, this is one of those pieces that you that final piece in the puzzle, and now you're able to compete for a playoff. So it is intriguing, but again, it sucks to have to put teams in the top 10. I get more excited. I honestly wish I went from 32 down to 1, but the draft doesn't go that way, so neither do we. Next, we got the Green Bay Packers. They're going Malachi Starks here. I know Green Bay probably should be later on than this. Luckily, we got Talise Fuaga. He's going to end up playing probably right tackle, kick Zach Tom to left. I think there might be a little bit of a growth curve there, hence also why I was comfortable putting Green Bay farther down the list. Tyler Nubin, he's going to be great. Technically, Malachi and Tyler play similar positions at free safety, but in the modern NFL, most likely you're going to be a left-right safety, and then there's guys who play more in the box. Malachi Starks plays a little bit more in the slot than Nubin does. So they do play different roles, and I think they complement each other very well. Nubin's more of he's more of the all-around player. Malachi Starks is more of the high upside, big playmaker. Again, Nubin's done a great job of that. I'm not going to try to shame Nubin, but Malachi Starks has been pretty damn dominant since he first came in his true freshman year. And so I'm going to give credit where credit is due. This guy's been consistently playing on a team where, a couple years ago, they had more 5-stars than the Pac-12. Like, this guy earned his role, and he's kept it. So, got to show love there to Malachi. But again, you got Trey Benson as well, Braylon Allen. I don't know if them, including Dante Corleone, have that day one impact. A lot of these players, maybe Tyler Nubin does. I think he would be the best in terms of day one. But the rest of them are longer-term investments that, this team has time to make those longer-term investments. And to be fair, if Jordan Love is the guy to work out, you are in a very good position to give him a cheap contract and then end up having it be a very, very good deal. Next, we got Mykel Williams. Just like the Browns needed something else, I think I kept it as the Houston Texans colors. Who cares? No one cares. But you're going to be pairing up Mykel Williams in the long run, or for the long run, with Myles Garrett. As a Steelers fan, I am scared shitless. But Mykel Williams came into the Georgia Bulldogs as, I believe, the number 1 player in the country. But ultimately, I saw him at the All-American Bowl, and it was honestly pretty damn awesome to see how high ceiling Mykel is. Statistically, he's not the most efficient player on planet Earth, but I still think he's developing very, very well. And especially with a mentor like Myles Garrett, I'm pretty down for anything at this point. And with Xavier Worthy and Billy Bowman Jr. on the roster, you're not necessarily getting there's not a massive amount of depth at the edge rusher position that I would necessarily believe in. I obviously have Isaiah McGuire on that roster as depth, but for me, I lost a lot of faith in him in that draft offseason. which is why it's so key to see how players perform on their own when they're an adult and they don't have a structured system. Just got to put that out there. But Michael Williams, the value is too damn good to pass up, especially if he hits the ceiling of what he could be. Now, Tampa Bay, I did not address edge rusher. I addressed quarterback, wide receiver, and a linebacker in the 3 rounds that we had of our last mock draft. So why not stay relatively local, go to Tennessee, and grab one of the best edge rushers in all of college right now. James Pierce has been absolutely dominant. He's one of those dudes where I started watching I've been watching Tyler Brown for a while now. I've been a big fan of him, but it was just when this year there was this 27 guy who was continuing to pop off my screen. I was like, man, I should take note of him. And all of a sudden, it's every single week. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing James Pierce get way more credit than Tyler Barron. And you know what? Deservedly so. This guy should be a top 15 pick. He is excellent. He flies off the ball. He has actually really good bend, a lot of finesse. For me, I think that's a really good core piece of this defense when you have so many veterans that are probably getting close to retirement age. Next, we have the Steelers. Oh, we need a quarterback. I'm trying my hardest to have Tomlin have one losing season so we can get a quarterback. And I actually believe in Jalen Milroe. There's a lot of really good throws that he makes. Now, there's the contrary where, some of his throws are a little bit inaccurate, but ultimately this guy is going to be running in the 4.4s. So you're going to have essentially a Justin Fields equivalent year one, like his impact. You're going to have that year one, but he has shown the touch. He's shown a lot of development. He's shown the touch. He's shown the deep ball. He's shown the ability to have a pinpoint pass. And for me, that's worth investing in. Like the Steelers, we have so many great defensive pieces, and especially with Nate Wiggins on the roster pairing up with Joey Porter Jr., there's not going to be too much at pick number 12 or even at pick number 22 if Jalen Milroe were there that you're going to find that is going to improve the team more than upgrading the quarterback position. And then imagine Jalen Milroe and Jalen Warren going on essentially an option or doing RPOs. I would love to see that. And Jalen Milroe is not afraid to throw the deep ball. And he's 9-1. He's doing far better than I ever imagined him to be. So give him one more year of development. I could totally see him being a legitimately good product in the NFL. And I'd hope my Steelers could take advantage of that. Next, we got Tacario Davis. Yeah, y'all aren't going to be knowing half of these. It's funny because the first player with an A on their helmet to go to Alabama, I'm going to give you a little bit of a teaser trailer. He, 1, might be the last. But 2, he is Alabama's not the school that has an A on the helmet that's going to have the most representation in this mock draft remotely. So I'm giving you a little bit of a hint there. Tacario Davis. I'm also giving you a really big hint because it's on a team that has an A on their helmet. Tacario Davis is a beast. He has 12 pass breakups this year. And Arizona's been maybe not closing out the victories, but in 95% of the games they've been playing, they're within 1 score of the elite teams of the Pac-12. And they don't have an elite team. They just have a couple elite weapons. They got Cowing there. They have another guy who I'm going to talk about. And then they have 2 star corners. And one of them is Tacario Davis. And he can bring the heat. I didn't address corner very well. I got Kamari Lassiter in there. But Kamari Lassiter is not going to be a day 1 development either. So you're going to have essentially Marvin and Jerzon, who I love. They're going to be day 1 impact. Then you got Kamari, who needs to be a developed guy, and him and Tacario Davis. Oh, that's going to be nasty. Barrett Carter, he's definitely not going to be a day 1 impact. And Bo Limmer still needs to learn some ball. So, this team, again, I'm trying to draft the most potential for rosters that are looking more for the long run. This is one of them, and this could be, Tacario Davis in a Gannon system. Super smart, very good ball skills. To me, that's going to be a great compliment with someone who's an elite athlete like Kamari Lassiter. Next, we got the Patriots. I drafted a left tackle for y'all, 2 wide receivers, and a quarterback, including Drake May's buddy and Tez Walker. Just got to put that in there. So, cool chemistry. But I don't have a right tackle yet. Roger Rosengarten is probably one of the best that you will find. He is a little bit on the lighter side at 300 pounds. Doesn't look like it. No disrespect to Roger, but he does look a little bit bigger. But maybe you can add some more muscle and get up to maybe 315 in the offseason. but he's been actually extremely efficient. 7 pressures, I believe, all year. Most of the other tackles I will talk about have let up more, but he is the lone right tackle after Amarius Mims that genuinely belongs in the first round. He's been playing very consistently. Got to give credit where credit is due. And again, building through the trenches is the Patriot way. And now you have your quarterback and receivers. So next step is going after the O-line. I could totally see the Patriots making a playoff run with Drake Maye. I mean, they could totally be at 24. But for this situation, because of the fact that, I don't trust the right tackle yet, I don't know if Drake Maye is going to be in the best situation to have a year one launch. I think you'll have a sophomore surge rather than a sophomore slump. Then we got the Commanders going Abdul Carter out of Penn State. I got both of the tackles, I got both of the edge rushers. I mean, and then we got a linebacker in there too. There's not much more this team needs. And I do think that a commander of the defense, no pun intended, would be kind of great. And Abdul Carter is just all around an absolute beast. So got to give that dude credit because, again, I'm a big fan of actually both of the other linebackers. They have Kobe King. That's pretty badass name, by the way. I debated putting him in the first round just for that name alone, but also Curtis Jacobs. Like both of them, I really do like. Abdul Carter's the best. So Penn State, high upside, really smart, really athletic, and he's built to be, I'm pretty sure he's in that 240-pound range. But Abdul Carter, he's an excellent player, and this team desperately needs that help to get a true commander, again, no pun intended, on that second level, and he's the guy to do it. Next, we got the Bengals getting finally some extra tackle help in here. I want Orlando Brown Jr. to, potentially, you can kick Kelvin Banks to right tackle if you want to. Who cares? But, one of them is going to be playing right tackle. You just need to get offensive line help. Got Graham Barton. I don't trust him to be a longer-term option at tackle. I think he could just fit anywhere on the interior and be an elite player. Then you get Kelvin Banks in there. The ultimate goal, protect Joey B. I don't trust this team to remain completely healthy. Again, don't really worry too much about the overall ranking. If it ends up being worse, awesome. Or y'all being up in the 20s, amazing. Most likely you will. But it's tough to be able to say some teams that won't make the playoffs will make the playoffs. Some teams that made the playoffs are not going to make the playoffs. Looking at your draft, I don't see a ton of high upside or high impact players except Graham Barton day one on the interior. But Brian Thomas, he's going to be someone who needs one full year development before coming out. And Tyleik Williams, he is a longer term project as well. So naturally, you're going to be getting somebody, especially with Kelvin Banks, he's more of a day one impact at left tackle. He's super athletic. I think he has 11 or 12 pressures allowed this year, so not too shabby at all, averaging about 1 a game. And you're going to have him come in, and he's going to be an upgrade over Jonah. He's going to be an upgrade. Then you add in the rest of the offensive line being able to have more cohesion. You also add in those players like Thomas and Williams that are going to be taking up their big step. You're actually going to be in prime position to run for the Super Bowl again. Sounds good to me. Next, we have the Bears. And this is via the New York Giants because if you guys remember, we had the Giants trade up for Caleb Williams. So there's going to be no Giants in this. Sorry, Giants fans. But that is the price of getting the arguably greatest talent at quarterback of all time. Instead, we got Deone Walker here. I think the Bears can continue to boost the defensive interior. I do believe that what y'all have in Gervin Dexter is amazing, but that's one player on the defensive interior. So now you're going to have Braylon Trice, Deone Walker, Montez Sweat. That is going to be a nasty defensive front. And that's exactly how the Bears are supposed to rock. So Deone Walker going to be a massive addition there. Receiver-wise, you don't need anything else. You got Malik, you got DJ, and you got Ladd McConkey. Don't really see anything else on the offensive line. You get Cedric Van Pran and Olu Fashanu. Don't really see many other positions to target, even though we do have another pick. Next, we got the Texans just technically missing the playoffs, but I do believe in them quite a bit. Here's the next Arizona player, Teteroa. I'm good at these names usually. Teteroa McMillan. T-Mac. We'll call him T-Mac for Tracy McGrady. So T-Mac has been absolutely dominant. I'm a huge fan of Jacob Cowing. This guy is taking all of Cowing's targets and touchdowns. Really irritating, but at the same time, this guy deserves it. He is a high-level receiver, and he is actually number 8 on my board currently. I wanted to send him earlier, but I just didn't see the proper timing for it. He's not the biggest guy on planet Earth, but he is actually slightly built. I would kind of comp him to AD Mitchell in terms of his overall physical build. Like he's not necessarily the most lanky guy in the world, but he's not a super buff DK Metcalf. It's a nice in between. But Teteroa is going to be, or Teteroa is going to be a massive addition for it. And I don't feel like you're going to be conflicting too many roles there on the Texans receiving room. I don't feel like he competes with Nico Collins very much. You don't compete with Tank Dell by any stretch of the imagination. So I think it's a good way to get a nice balance because we went full defense. Chris Jenkins, Junior Colson, Chris Braswell. I mean, it's kind of good to be able to get a little flexibility in there and help out CJ Stroud a little bit. Next, we got the Chargers going Mason Smith. I went Brock Bowers and TJ Tampa. This almost was also a Bears pick. Just saying. Y'all wanted this to be sent to the Bears instead of the second round pick. But, instead, we get Mason Smith to add to TJ Tampa, who's a day one impact, and Brock Bowers. So, I just don't really trust the team right now. I just don't trust them. I don't know why. I don't trust them. And, well, I guess I do know why. Because I always say they're going to go 14-3, and then they don't do jack. So, maybe that's why. But Brock Bowers obviously going to be the focal point of that offense. Debated going after a wide receiver here because Keenan as well as Mike will be up for contracts at that point. But Mason Smith helping out the defensive interior is something I didn't do in the previous draft. And, I do think he's going to continue to take steps up and up. Next, we got the Falcons. And here we go again. Oh, it's not Ohio State. There we go. I knew I had messed up somewhere. It is not Ohio State. It is Arizona again. And it's going to be Ephesians Prysock. This guy's 6'4", 180 pounds, so a little bit on the thinner side. Very much on the thinner side. He needs to add more weight. But this dude has been, honestly, such an elite number 2 corner. I didn't address it at all in my mock draft. And to be fair, you probably will end up re-signing the corners that you do have up for a contract and end up doing a really good job there. But at the moment, that's up in the air. And I do believe that, this team can make a legitimate push. And Prysock, especially nowadays with all the corner injuries and such, you do need to have that depth. And Prysock at that 6'4" frame, if you add a little bit more size to it, this guy could be an absolute beast. Next, we have Evan Stewart out of Texas A&M. 175, so on the thinner side, but absolutely dominant. Really smooth route runner, very fast. And we all know Texas A&M is just full of track stars. I think he needs to refine his route running a little bit more. Smooth is a bit generous. But Tyreek Hill said once his contract's up, he's probably going to go into a particular industry that I would rather not talk about. So he probably will need his role replaced. Evan Stewart's a pretty good guy to bring into the fold and see if he can add that extra speed. And even if he isn't immediately replacing Tyreek Hill, not a bad idea to have some good depth there. Now you got Jordan Morgan and Jatavian Sanders there to add to that group. So the future's looking pretty bright there in Miami. Now we got a defensive back here, safety Hunter Wohler out of Wisconsin. So yeah, Bears, we have all those people I already talked about, as well as Deone Walker. And the next position I could really think of getting some extra depth is that safety / slot core. And Hunter Wohler has been pretty much 80 plus on every PFF grade across the board. He's just been extremely smart, very patient. For me, this is probably someone who I don't see going in the first round in the long run, but he's someone who I want to give a lot of credit to because I don't feel like he gets enough of a spotlight. And the Bears could definitely use some extra defensive back rotational help, which is wild to say in the first round. But ultimately, I do think the Bears could make the playoffs with their roster. I do believe that Justin Fields, with the roster they have, if they don't make the playoffs, it's Justin's fault. If they make the playoffs and make a small push, I don't feel like anybody's going to blame Justin for it. And especially with the contract of Eddie Jackson most likely going to be coming up during that time, and you're probably going to have to pay Justin, you're going to pay Justin and not Eddie. Therefore, Hunter Wohler is going to be a quality addition. Now we got Derek Harmon to the Jaguars. He's going to be a little bit older. He could come out this year, but for the most part, I wanted to give credit to some guys who I don't exactly see being like day 2 targets who might want to return and boost their stock once and for all. Derek Harmon is someone who I've commented quite a few times on my Twitter. He pops off all the time. He's a very, very good defensive interior. And, when you look at the players we got, we've already addressed receiver. We already got center for y'all. Like, there's just a lot of really good players that we've addressed for the Jaguars. So, it's not really many other positions I see as being valuable for the draft that we have, or for the players that are on the board right now. So, Derek Harmon is going to be a very, very valued position. And he's just so talented, man. He is super talented. Older, but this isn't a Super Bowl ready roster. Next, we got Caleb Bacon going to the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, that name is beautiful and it's sensational. And he's also a Mike linebacker. And you need Mike linebackers. And this guy has been extremely balanced as a linebacker in terms of being really good as a pass rusher, really good in coverage. Iowa State doesn't produce very many good linebackers. They're starting to look like they can produce one right here. He's been honestly just super consistent every single game. I haven't really seen much of a talent drop off, and you got to give credit where credit is due. Caleb Bacon is somebody worth putting on your radar, not just for the name, but for the actual talent level. And the Seahawks don't really have very much that you have to worry about at this point. Got Javon Bullard to be their future at safety, J.J. McCarthy, the future at quarterback, Jeremiah Trotter, the smaller Will linebacker. Next, we have the Ravens with Ollie Gordon II. This dude put up almost 300 yards back-to-back weeks. I mean, that alone should let you know that he should be a first-round pick. I just have a hard time putting running backs in the first round. And I didn't put one to the Baltimore Ravens in the last mock. Therefore, going to do it this time. And, it's a great spot for him to go. They've drafted Oklahoma State running backs before as well and have done very, very well off of it. So they're going to continue doing that here. Next, we have the Lions. And Jalen Polk returned. Oh, well, he's a first-round pick now. And that was a smart decision. Ended up deciding to say, I'm taking one more year to move up one more round. And now he is going to be the boundary threat at 6'2", 204 pounds for a Super Bowl competitor that is looking for someone of that exact build. So great for him. He's going to end up being the replacement for Donovan Peoples-Jones, who they brought in. And he's going to be the future of the boundary. And I love that, because we didn't address it in our mock draft, but we've addressed corner, we've addressed the offensive line, we've addressed the defensive line, and we even have a future at deep safety. So good for everyone. Next, we have the New York Football Jets, and the tackles on the board were not someone who I would like. The left tackles, Will Campbell was someone who came to mind. Like, I just don't know if I would really see the value in him over just getting a future with Aaron. If they're at pick 27, they made a good playoff push. I don't know if Aaron returns. And in that instance, you got to get a quarterback. Carson Beck is someone who deserves that first round respect in a year. He's getting about second round respect right now. And so for me, I'm certainly a little bit worried about putting him that high, because I don't really see, I don't think that he's the type of quarterback to be one and done, to be fair. But two, there are intricacies of his game he needs to work on. So for me, that's where I'm at with that. And continuing on with the Dallas Cowboys, this is someone who has been a perennial and just weekly addition, feature of the stock report. BJ Green, this dude's been putting out about 5 pressures a week. He's been absolutely dominant. And at 6'1", 275, he's almost a perfect DeMarcus Lawrence replacement for the long run. Again, he's been able to actually play inside and out, so you like that versatility as well. Pretty damn solid in the run defense too, if I may say. So, ASU doesn't have very many bright spots. They actually have had quite a few really good defensive linemen over the past couple of years, including last year with Nesta Jade Silvera. So shout out to the Raiders for that one. But BJ Green's a beast. He really is. And this team needs to have a contingency plan. Edge rusher doesn't seem like a necessity at the moment, but you don't have those guys who are 275 plus who can legitimately set an edge and be an elite pass rusher and run stuffer. This guy is absolutely perfect for that. We got Terrion Arnold, Danny Stutzman, and Marshawn Lloyd in the last draft. So we technically don't need Terrion Arnold anymore. Apparently, Deron Bland is God himself. I mean, the Lord has returned. No one's talking about that. But, to be fair, Stephon Gilmore probably won't need to be there. And then Terrion Arnold, you can never have too many corners, so I'm not going to complain about it too much. Now we got Joshua Farmer of the Chiefs, or not of the Chiefs now, according to the mock draft of the Chiefs, but formerly of Florida State. This guy could be coming out this year. He's been featured by Jim Nagy as a potential target for the Senior Bowl, but nothing's official at the recording of this video. We'll see about that. But he's been popping off. Not necessarily the most consistent statistically. I think he has just over about 300 reps this year, which is not as much as some of these guys who have 700 reps. But that's a really deep rotation there at Florida State. Naturally, the older you get, the closer to the draft you get, the more reps you'll be able to acquire because his talent level is good enough to acquire him in the first place. Just a really talented player. I don't think Mekhi Wingo is the end-all, be-all for the defense interior of the Chiefs. We'll see what happens with Chris Jones in the offseason, but for now, it's safe to say that it's better to be safe than sorry. So Josh Farmer is going to be a great pick there. This is a fun one. It is actually, the name is fully on the screen. It's Jonah Savaiinaea. Who knows? He's a right tackle out of Arizona. I've been watching a lot of Jordan Morgan, and honestly, he's been popping off quite a bit. Needs a year or two to develop. At 2025, people are talking about how Lane Johnson's contract till 2027. Those are probably some void years in there. Just got to put that out there. But even if it's not, he needs that time to develop, and he will be the future at right tackle. He does have a ton of potential. It was not one of those positions I targeted in the past mock draft where I just went solely defense with Chop, Dwight, and Curtis. Speaking of Curtis, who I talked about earlier. So we got linebacker, we got boundary corner, and we got edge rusher. Now we have that right tackle of the future. I do think you guys are going to be pretty much in the Super Bowl at this point. But the one team I have a little bit more faith with because I am drafted for them, even though my buddy is the scouting director for the 49ers. So throwing a little bit of shade RJ's way. They don't usually draft the way I would draft. It is what it is. But I do think if they do draft the way that I would draft, arrogantly, they would make the Super Bowl. And that's with Kingsley Suamataia, who is going to be their future at right tackle. Quinyon Mitchell had 12 pass breakups, going to be a great corner too there. And Donovan Jackson, who's a high upside athletic guard. Now we're going to get an elite defensive back. I've been trying to hype up Tao Johnson for a hot minute now. Even since week 1, this guy's been popping off, making elite level plays. And it's just one of those guys very similar to Jalen Pitre. When you watch him just rep after rep, they pass the eye test and they're athletic and they're just ballsy players. They're willing to go for it. And I love players like that. And I think regardless of where he ends up in that safety core, because I know you already have 2 guys there. You don't necessarily need probably a slot for the future. You might actually. But this is someone that you need to have in your rotation regardless. This guy is going to be a star. And the last thing you want to do is give a star to somebody that you're going to be playing against. You'd rather have him on your team than play against him. And finally, to end off this draft, we have the Bills. Yeah, I do think the Bills can make a Super Bowl push with the draft that they had. That's the big caveat right there. They're probably not going to have the draft that I give them. But Kalen King, Troy Franklin, and Blake Corum, I think that pretty much suffices most of the issues that they've been having. And then you get Aubrey Burks to be the future at safety for them. He's had some pretty rough weeks, but he's also had the low lows, but the really high highs. Having one of the highest graded PFF weeks out of pretty much most defenders the entire year. So got to give Aubrey some credit there. It's a big position of need, but mainly this list was designed to have a little bit of fun, explore that 2025 class, and get excited to see some more players that we don't get to see on our teams coming in the next fall. So thank you so much for watching and supporting the show as always. See you on the far side. Peace.